Okay, so this is going to be transcribed and recorded, and Will is going to post this session on the Texas Annual Conference webinar. I noticed when I reviewed the recordings of the other meetings, I didn't introduce myself at the first. I'm Andre Como. I'm with McGriff. We have a relatively small audience today, so we ought to be able to answer any questions that you have. I am going to go to my email. I'm going to share an email just to set up what we're doing here today. If you'll bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see the screen. Anyone? You may all be on mute now. So if somebody wouldn't mind unmuting, let me know if you can or cannot see the screen.
We can see it.
Okay, thank you. So what you're looking at is an email that I sent out inviting everyone to these webinars. This is the 5th in this series of webinars on how to fill out the application worksheets. We specifically spent time on property and auto the first time, 2 others the second time, 2 more the third time. Last week, we spent our time, for the most part, just answering questions that people had about the workbooks that they had been working on, and that's what we're scheduled to do today. And if anybody, we have a relatively small audience. If you have something very particular that you're into, don't worry about getting too deep into the weeds. That's what we're trying to do here. So that's the invite. Obviously, you're all each able to get in. And what I'm going to call to your attention again is the email that went out from Will Reed. Originally, this is just an example of the one that went out to the Watershed United Methodist Church. There were 6 workbooks. We provided some instructions on how to get into them and fill them out. Each workbook had a subset of instructions, and those are there. And then at the bottom of that email, you have my information, Gilbert and Braxton Watson, depending on the district that you're in. Now, I can answer questions for any of the churches, as can Gilbert and as can Braxton. We just, if you need help, if you happen to be in the Southwest and Southeast districts, call me first. If you can't get me, try Gilbert or Braxton, and then same around. We just wanted to sort of distribute the first calls so that we didn't load any one of us up. And we had some instructions about how to send your information in. We also sent out an email. We found a glitch, I guess, in 2 of the workbooks, the tax claims made workbook and the occurrence workbook, where there were some questions that were not completely visible for some users. And not all users had exactly the same experience, but we identified a number of questions that had been an issue for at least one user. We printed those and wrote all of them completely out and then put them into this email so that if you run into that problem, we hope that you ought to be able to go to this email and find the full question that you're looking for. So with that, I'll just open the floor to any questions that you might have or any comments you have about where you are and how you think you might be doing. And so everyone should be on mute. Maybe Jim.
Yeah, like I just want to make a comment. I think I'm through with mine and be able to mail that in tomorrow or the next day. We're going through our first stage of getting insurance on our church because we're a new church. And we've had a difficult time getting the directors and officers liability. And I found our insurance agent found one insurance company out of about 10 that would even insure us. And it was pretty high. He's been gone the last few days, but the last I talked to him, he said he thought he found another company that would be a little bit more reasonable. Do you think you guys are going to have that same issue? And it's because of the split. It's because of the split up between in the United Methodist Church.
So it's less likely to be an issue for the Texas Annual Conference having one new church among many, as opposed to your entire organization.
Right.
You're trying to ensure you're one church. The whole thing is new, and so I don't think we'd have the same challenge that you're facing. But you'd be part of a group.
Right.
The directors and officers would be extended to. Our intent is to have the directors and officers extended to all of the leaders of all of the churches that participate in the program.
And the impression I got, it wasn't the issue that we were a new church. It was the issue that the United Methodist Church recent split. So,
okay,
don't know if that matters or not. Well, you'll find out as you start getting quotes.
Yeah, I think for it is something that an underwriter would question, but I would think there's enough information out there to satisfy the questions they would have. I would ask, what is it about the split that causes you to be concerned that we have a greater risk because we're in a denomination that recently split? And I would try to drill down on that.
Okay. All right.
And Jim, if you were in any of the earlier meetings at one point when we first introduced what we're doing, I think we shared a list of all of the insurance companies that we have identified that have some appetite or have had some appetite for insuring churches. Do you recall that?
I could have, but we're a pretty good ways down the line, and I'm ready to close the chapter on insurance and let you take over and see what you can find.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we're gonna do. Anybody else have anything in particular that they'd like to go over? Any of the workbooks you might want to discuss or questions? We've had a number of people tell us that they're not going to make the deadline. We don't want to advertise that the deadline is going to slide, but there's a good chance that we'll still be accepting information in the next week or so, maybe even a couple of weeks. But so I'd like people not to get too excited and think they absolutely missed the boat. Lillian, how are you making out?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, I hear you now.
I'm almost finished with it. We have kind of a unique case because our actual building that we are in, like that I'm sitting in right now, is the annual conference covers it. So we're looking for the cars and our rental properties that we own. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah. So the building that you're in should appear on the statement that Will is going to send from the conference.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but I think I'm finished. I mean.
Okay, great. Lillian, how about you, Lillian? Let's see. Yeah, you're still on mute. If there's anything in the chat that you want to ask, please type it in there. We have a little trouble getting Lillian's microphone to come through. Ron, anything else from your end? I know we've gone back and forth a few times.
I'm working on the last one myself. I think it's the claims, and got some documentation from our insurance agent because we really don't have any claims in the last 5 years. So, but she did send us some documentation to verify that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have a small audience and it's quiet, so please, anything you might want to ask.
There's instructions in the email you sent out on how you want the files arranged.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'll check that out.
Yes. And I can pull that up. We can look at that right now if you want to. Let's see.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah. All right. Hang on just a second. I'm going to share my screen again. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this was the email that would have come from Will Reed. And step one, we suggested that before you start, that you take the file and save it to a file name that will be easy for us to recognize. And down at the bottom, we've got some examples. So if you're the First United Methodist Church of Houston, we'd ask you to put your district, ME for Metro, SW for Southwest, etc. First of Houston, and then the name of the workbook, occurrence claim made auto cyber. Another example for Avenger United Methodist Church. Here's an example for St. James in Beaumont. So Southeast, Beaumont, St. James, occurrence. There are multiple churches in Beaumont. There are actually multiple St. James churches, but if you give it to us like this, we'll be able to identify you separately among the others. And of course, if you use the same first part, here's Southwest, Thomas Chapel in Willis, Southwest Willis, Thomas, or Thomaso. We'll be able to connect all of these together. Is that helpful, Jim?
Yeah, so that I knew, but by the time you send in these 6 documents and you send in your losses and you send in your insurance policies, there's a number of folders. So my question is, when we send an email in, is that one email with all the attachments, or you want that broken down?
Thank you. So we addressed that on the claim information. We'd like a separate email for the claim information, and the other items. I think we should have given instructions to say, if we didn't, that probably three emails would do it. One with the workbooks attached, unless you have a system that requires that you break that down and you can only send 1 or 2 at a time. But ideally, one email with the workbooks attached, one email with the claim information attached, and then another email with the policies or other documents that might be requested for handbooks, daycare policies, sexual misconduct policies, those kinds of things. Is that helpful?
Yes, sir. And for us, we need to send in a copy of our budget because we're new. So I'll put that in, I guess, just one of the emails.
Yes, yes, please. Yeah, I'd put it in the kind of all other email. You have the workbooks, you have the claim information, and
Okay.
then the all other.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It looks like Will is joining us. Good afternoon, Will.
Sorry, I'm late. I had another meeting, so.
That's fine. That's okay. We have a small group today. We've answered 2 or 3 softballs, I'll call them. Easy to answer stuff. Is there anything that's pressing? I know you're working on the conference response to all of this. Anything that's hanging you up or you want clarification on?
No, just know that you're going to receive 2 different spreadsheets for the property piece of this. So I will ask this in front of the group. When we have churches that close, we make a decision internally whether we want to provide a full property and casualty policy for the church, or if we want to just provide liability coverage. So some of those properties are covered with a full coverage, and some are not, based upon their use and so forth and so on. So maybe we can talk offline about that. But the ones that I'm including on our list are the ones that we need to have full coverage on. As an example, we've got a couple that are rented, and obviously we want to do that in that situation. But we might need to talk about the liability coverage and how we've done that. It's a Philadelphia policy. I can share that with you.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Now, the policies that the buildings that you have rented, you may have considered, but you can insure the buildings for lost rents. The value of the rent money that you would lose if that building were not habitable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a business interruption or business income column
Right.
you should find on the statement of values.
Right.
You can put information in there. And then the other thing I might just throw out on that subject, and it's not guaranteed, it's not always easy to deal with, but you might have some buildings that if you lost them, you wouldn't rebuild them. You
Right.
might, and so you might not want to insure them. And certainly if you did rebuild them, there might be some buildings that you don't need you don't need to replace the building exactly as it is.
Right.
Another cheaper building may suit the same function. And so some underwriters will accept an agreement on functional replacement cost. So they would agree to some value that you think it would take to build a building to replace the function of the building you lost, not to replace the building.
Right.
So, keep that in mind. That's
Yeah. Well, that's frankly, that's part of the reasoning behind some of these closed churches, our decision to only provide liability coverage. It's if there were a fire or the building blew down, we would just clear it and sell the property.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yes.
Jim, did you ask the question about directors and officers coverage already?
Yes, sir, I sure did. And,
well, good.
Before you got on the meeting, our insurance agent's been out of town, and he emailed me and said he found another company that was much more reasonable. So I hadn't
Yeah.
seen how much that is yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what we anticipate once we have a group deal together, Will, is that the directors and officers would be there to cover all of the leadership of the conference as well as the churches within the conference.
Right.
And if only one church was new and doesn't have a history of directors and officers coverage, that's only going to be a percentage of the exposure for the Texas Annual Conference, less likely to be a concern for underwriters. But as I told Jim, I would ask the agent to challenge that underwriter. What is it about being in a denomination that recently split that gives you pause?
Yeah, and there were about 10 of those insurance companies that said, no, we're not interested.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Well, we right now for the conference carry a policy that, if I'm not mistaken, it's $1 million incident and $2 million aggregate, and then a $10 million umbrella on top of that. I think that's the correct terminology, but anyway, but we've never had a filing on that policy. So.
So, as we talked about, Will, and I was bragging on myself for being able to send 2 recorded webinars to you. And today it should be 3. Will, did you have to agree to be recorded before you were able to get into the meeting?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
great. So we finally figured that out, and I apologize. The first 2 meetings were not recorded and are not available to review, but we can cover any of that material today. I didn't have any new material to introduce today, and we were just going to answer questions.
By the way, I just checked, Andre, in last week's video or webinar is on the website now.
Great. Great. We have someone else who just joined us, it looks like, from a 713. Would you like to introduce yourself?
That's me. That's Lillian.
Oh, hey. Okay. You calling in? I get you.
Yeah, I'm going to disconnect from the.
Got you. Well, Will, I'm at your leisure. However, you all would like to spend this time, and again, we set up 5 meetings originally. The first 2, I think, were pretty well attended. I want to believe that we've had a fewer attendance in the last 3 because we've done such a great job of providing instructions with the material.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm telling myself. We've had a number of people, I'll tell you, Will, who ask if the July 31st deadline is firm. We've not advertised, but we've responded that, we'll be taking information in after the 31st. I don't know for how long, but we have a number of people that have sent their information in, a number who have said they are working on it and will send it in. And we've just begun to sort of catalog that and begin going through the information to see what might be missing and what we might have to follow up on.
Yeah.
But if there is a need for more of these webinars, we now know how to do it.
Good. Good for you, Andre. I had one person submit their material to me today. I forwarded that on to you and to, I think it was just you. Yeah, it was one in Beaumont, if I recall.
Yes.
Did you get that?
Yes, sir, I did, and I flipped it to in the system that we've set up here, that they all go to the TAC UMC at McGriff website.
Ah,
And
okay.
so you can send it to me, but in the
Yep, that's where it
instructions
ends up.
yeah. And so Elizabeth, who's on our team, she's participated in one or two of the webinars, is sort of our first point of quality control. She's cataloging and filing what comes in electronically, identifying what might be missing. If it's one of the churches in the southeast or southwest, she'll put it in my bucket to call and try to get the missing information. And so that's the process that we're going to be entering here into this week and then in the next week. So that's, we'll be doing that work next week and the week after, as we probably still be receiving information.
Okay. If Andre, you need me to help in any way with that, let me know. But it sounds like you guys have a plan that you're just working the plan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's just, we just roll up the sleeves and get after it. It's just all there is to it. We do have electronic systems to help us compile this information, but identifying what's missing. And honestly, there will be some information missing. Some of it, we absolutely know the underwriters are going to insist on having. The square footage of the building, okay, the value of the building, for example. There's some other information that we might think, let's just let this go. Let's say 75% of the participants have an answer for that and 25% don't answer it. And we don't think it's that critical. We'll just let that go. If the underwriters have heartburn, we'll wait and let them tell us that we need to go back and chase that information. So, we're going to be entering a phase where there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. We don't want to ask you to go back and fill out every last item if we think some of it, if most of the churches answered it, a few of the churches did not, we're going to send that to the underwriters and see if they kick it back. And if they accept it like it is, then we're done with that.
I do have one final question, Andre, that it made me think of it when you were talking. The value of the property is X dollars per foot times the square feet in your calculations. And in the past, that's been a ballpark figure that's kind of been negotiated between churches and their insurance broker or the provider or whatever. So I'm curious what you do with, so different numbers for different kinds of buildings are appropriate. So how do you deal with the differing numbers?
So the key items is construction,
right,
age,
right,
and location. And so I think in an earlier session, we had a question about how do I get the right value for my building and what happens if it's wrong. So my best advice is to call a contractor. Now, given enough time, there are systems, and we subscribe to one where you can put in the key information and it'll tell you what it costs to build a building like that in your area today. Right. Okay. It'll give you a little range. And so we have the capability to go out there and do that. We couldn't do that for all of the Texas Annual Conference churches. We just don't have the manpower. But you can call a contractor. Yeah. Okay. You should be able to call a contractor, maybe an architect, but a building contractor in your area should be able to tell you ballpark how many dollars per square foot it should cost to build a building of the construction that you have to replace it today.
So my other follow-up question then is, if we put a number in that based upon the construction that we've described, the roof that we've described, and so forth and so on, and you think we're really off base, will you probably give us a call?
Yes, well, the underwriters are going to let us know. So
Okay.
what we're going for here, Will, so in the normal, and most of the churches that are insured today probably have what's called co-insurance. Okay.
Yep.
If you pull your Philly policy, I'm sure it's in there.
It's in there.
Might be, let's say it's 80%. Okay. And so what that means is if you have a building that's worth $1 million, but you only insure it for $500,000, if the whole thing burns down, of course, you're not going to get any more than $500,000. But let's say that you have a $100,000 loss on that $1 million building. Well, if you don't insure it until at least 80% of its true value, if you didn't insure it for at least $800,000, then on that $100,000 claim, you're only going to get 50%. You're only going to get $50,000. You're going to get penalized because you didn't meet the co-insurance requirement. And so if you had insured it to $800,000 and your policy says you have a co-insurance requirement of 80%, then you would get your claim fully paid unless it was higher than $800,000. You just wouldn't go over that limit. So on the policies that in this realm, and the type of policies that we're trying to write here, we seek no co-insurance penalty. Okay, we seek an agreement on the replacement cost. The underwriters are going to take these statement of values that you're filling out and that we've structured in a way that it's going to be easy for the underwriters to download into their system. And their system is going to go through that. And if they come across a building or a group of buildings that look like they don't meet what the underwriter's understanding of minimum replacement cost value, then the conversation they'll have is, these look like they're undervalued. If you don't increase these to at least this dollar amount, then we are going to impose a co-insurance penalty.
Right.
And so that's what we expect is going to happen in these negotiations. We're going to try to avoid a co-insurance penalty with all of these buildings and just get an agreement on the value. Underwriters will check all of the cost per square foot against the age and the location and the construction, and their system will tell them whether they think it's undervalued.
Okay. I noticed Jim has his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, my computer locked up. I had to get out and get back in. Terrorist insurance. It's relatively cheap, but I decided not to get it. What's your thoughts on that?
You probably don't need it. So, and in certain lines of coverage, it makes absolutely no sense to me. Now, this came about. This is actually underwritten or reinsured. The insurance company that offers it to you is not actually taking the risk. The federal government is taking the risk. The federal government is the one who prices it, and the insurance companies just sort of handle it. So for workers' compensation insurance, it's mandatory. Okay. It's the government, when they set this backstop up, they just decided we're going to make this mandatory. When the terrorists attacked the World Trade Centers, there were thousands of people who died at work. Okay. There were a lot of workers' compensation claims. And as a matter of public policy, the government has decided that no employer is going to go without terrorist insurance. So on workers' compensation, it's required. On property insurance, which is insuring your interest, it's a first party coverage. It's available if you think the property you own might be subject to an attack by a terrorist. And it's got to be a terrorist attack that the government recognizes as a legitimate terrorist attack. If a lone wolf comes in there and says, I don't like the Methodist Church, you people are evil, and burns down your church, that's just going to be arson. Okay. But if somebody from another religion decides that the United Methodist Church is a problem, and we have a larger planned attack on a bunch of Methodist churches that that might qualify as a terrorist attack. So if you think your church might be the subject of such an attack, then you might buy the insurance. So in my experience, I had one client who was it was a pseudo government operation that had software designers and testers, and one of the software designers had a contract with the federal government that had something to do with, I don't know, weapon systems or something. And they thought if the terrorists, if a foreign body believed that this was a place that they could, gain something from attacking, so they bought it for that piece of property. Significant offshore oil and gas installations might buy it. Refineries probably buy it, that kind of stuff. So, you probably don't need that for property.
Yeah, we turned it down, just figured that there's bigger fish to fry than Bryan College Station.
Right. And then if you think about liability, okay, general liability, the whole concept of liability is negligence, okay? And so someone would have to claim that you were negligent, that you did not do enough to protect your customers or your worshipers or your visitors. If a terrorist attacked your church while people were in it and they sued you, claiming that you should have known and you should have done more to prevent a terrorist attack on your congregation during a service, the terrorist portion of your general liability policy would cover that. But I think it'd be pretty far-fetched to
Right.
To make that claim.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So in most cases, I don't recommend that you buy it. I don't think you need it. And if it represents any significant dollars, certainly I would pass on it.
Yeah. But it wasn't much money, but we passed anyway.
I have a question.
Yes, Lillian.
This is Lillian. We have stained glass windows in our church,
Yes.
and the replacement value for each window is like $50,000. How do we have 10 of them?
So there's a couple of ways you can handle it. My suggestion would be I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so this is the property workbook. And on the statement of values, you can actually include that value, the value of that, in the value of the building. But I wouldn't do that. I'd come to the special property form. Now, you don't want to insure it twice. So if your building is worth $3 million and you have $1 million worth of stained glass, then what you're going to want to do is list the building value at $2 million and then list your stained glass separately. And I'd put that on this, let's see. I'd put it on this form, this IM Accord 152. You can also put, there might be a place on this form, the special property IM. IM means inland marine, which is an old term, but it's basically for property that moves around. Stained glass doesn't move around, but you want to make sure that it's insured for what it's worth and that you're able to replace it if you lose it. So you can come to this form, but you're better off on this IM Accord 152, and I would list it here. I would put,
Okay.
and if you have how many, 10?
I have 10.
So, you put them all down here. I'd put each one of them separately and identify them in such a way that you'd be able to, let's say you lose 3 of them because of a lightning strike, you'd be able to identify them. You're going to want replacement costs, which you should be able to choose here. Hang on.
Okay, so I had a company come and appraise our windows, and they gave us a report, how much it would cost to replace them. That's how come we know how much it is. Do I send that in too?
That would be helpful. Yeah, attach that. If that's that, but that should be in support of the information that you list out here. Do you follow that?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to have it listed out here. And there's a good chance that underwriters would say, well, do you have anything in writing that establishes it, or an appraisal? They might just ask for an appraisal. And if we have it from you already, that'd be great.
Okay. I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the current, it asks for the number of weekly members that attend service, and then it
Yes.
goes down to income for that. Is that a weekly or yearly
I think
income?
well, let's go see. Which tab was that on? Was that the common operations?
No, I think it's general liability. Let me go back to mine. I can tell you right quick. Yeah, it's the common operating, yes.
Okay, how far down is it? Which question do you know?
It's on line 30, 36, 35, 36.
So this is as of the end of the fiscal period. So that would be for a year.
For a year.
Yes. What's the average weekly attendance for your most recent fiscal period? And what's the total income for that period?
Okay. And then all the rest of them is whatever we have in our endowment
Right,
currently.
right.
Okay. And when you say lots, I don't have a value of my lots. Do I just take the value that the state is, has a value to it,
Are you talking about a vacant lot?
a vacant lot?
Yeah, so a vacant lot, you should, let's see.
Because in that line, it was asking for lots.
Probably parking lot.
Yeah, that would be parking lot, but yeah, the vacant lot, I mean, that is part of the assets of the church. So yes, if you have a value on that, I would include that in there.
Okay.
And the value of that vacant lot, you don't want to insure that value. They're just trying to get a sense of the size of your assets.
Okay. Because I have vacant lots. I own vacant lots around my church. Just a lot of it. That's the reason I was asking.
I'm assuming once we send this in, if you see any big gaping holes or something, you'll contact us, won't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what we'll be working on next week after, until we get through everything that comes in. And like I said, if it looks like something that's definitely not going to be accepted by the underwriters, we'll address it, call you. And, but if it's a minor thing, and most churches, provided it, and we have one or two churches that did not, we'll probably pass that on to the underwriters and wait to see if they make a deal about it.
Right. Any of the insurance company make a big deal about having a lightning rod for the church? We had
Yeah, it's
one
not-
insurance company that turned us down because we didn't know if we had one or not.
It's been a long time since I have come across that question, a long time. But, it's a thing. I mean, a lightning rod actually does dissipate the static electricity from a building. People think it's where the lightning is going to hit. It draws the lightning away from the building or something. But what it actually does, as I understand it, is it helps to release the static electricity that might otherwise build up on the building and attract lightning. So
Right.
it's a real thing. Just they don't use them as much as they used to, and I don't know why. I don't know. I hadn't seen that question in a long time.
We have several buildings with lightning rods that are on our sheet, but did not see any place to put that they do have lightning rods.
The underwriters we deal with, just for the most part, don't ask that question.
Yep. Yep.
I'd hate it if, we got a decent offer from someone who said, yeah, but only if all the churches have lightning rods, then we have to go back and ask everybody if you have lightning rods.
A lot of steeples are grounded so that if they do attract lightning, it's dissipated into the ground.
That's good to know. We couldn't find anybody in the church that knew if we had one or not, and we weren't smart enough to figure out if we had one.
Do you have a metal steeple?
Yes.
I would almost venture to guess, Jim, that there's probably a big copper wire attached to that goes down into the ground at some point around the building.
Okay, good.
Most of the churches that I've dealt with have something like that. Even if it's not a lightning rod, it's metal, and
Right.
they use something to ground it.
Yeah.
So, Andre, if you'll send me the video, we'll get it posted. I just sent you the link that we got the other ones posted. They are now up.
Great. I'll check them out. Now, I think they come to you with a description of what it is.
It has a
before
date on
plays.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In the title. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'll do that. There's no other questions. I'll take care of that. We'll be talking. By the end of this week, I'll give you a report of, after the deadline, what exactly has come in and where we are with that, and what we've done to reach out to the churches. We've done quite a bit of that in the last week and a half, and we'll talk about the next step. But most of the work we anticipate doing in the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be reviewing what has come in and trying to follow up with the information we think that may still be needed.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank
Super.
you all.
Thank
I'll
you.
have a good evening.
We'll get some stuff to you tomorrow.